If a chef is what you need, Mr. Stefon Diggs, I'm here to give you whatever you need. Just perform in the playoffs. How long until I get canceled? What is going on, Pats Nation, and welcome back into another episode here on Patriots Global. We got so much to get into in today's episode. As you can see, we're going to be talking about a few different topics. Some of those topics include Drake Maye MVP, as he officially locked it up after the stinker that Matthew Stafford just put up. Will Campbell is also returned to New England Patriots practice, according to Mike Vrabel. What impact does that have on the New England Patriots? We're going to be talking about that one also. And then, of course, the biggest storyline that everybody is talking about, every single Patriots fan is worried about, that is Stefon Diggs, the assault allegations. It is going around the entire National Football League right now. What are the details? What happened? Is this legit? And is he going to be suspended as the postseason is officially lurking around the corner, man? There's going to be a lot of things said here. So in case any comment comes out that is a little bit inappropriate, we're throwing a flag on the play. Okay, we're throwing a flag on the play. We're stopping. And the show's over, okay? All jokes aside, though, let's go ahead and let's just get into what we know about the situation. And so, big thing is that there's really not a whole lot known about it right now. We know certain parts, part of the police report, screenshots, pictures that were taken of it did come out. We'll take a look at those in a second, but it's day one, right? We just heard about this a few hours ago, and so there's going to be a lot of details that are ultimately going to come out about this. As time goes on, I think one of the biggest things that I'm going to be waiting to see is this just going to be one instance with one person, or is this going to be a situation where multiple people come out and start talking about the situation? Oh, well, Stefon Diggs did this to me. Well, Stefon Diggs did this to me, and Stefon Diggs did this to me. You know, a few years ago when the Me Too movement came out, ever since that happened, you have one person coming out about an allegation, you have a billion people coming out about the allegation. And the first thing that I want to say before we get into this is that I believe in innocent until proven guilty. I believe that we live in a society, especially with social media, where as soon as we see a storyline, it is immediately the truth. As soon as somebody tells you something, you just believe it. I saw a TikTok video the other day where it was like this comedian saying that, you know, did you know that in a song, these are the actual words? And everybody was like, oh, wow, really? And then 5 minutes later, he goes, yeah, people will believe anything you tell them. In fact, I lied to you. That's not actually what they said in the song, but I saw everybody's face in the audience light up like, oh, damn, that's what they said, because we believe anything that anybody says. And the truth is that with allegations like this, you do need proof and you do need evidence. And so that's not to say that the victim's wrong or we shouldn't be saying that she's a liar or she's a gold digger or anything like that, but it's just to say that this is brand new. It is fresh. Let's take time to wait for more details to come out before we say that Stefon Diggs is telling the truth or that Stefon Diggs is a liar. But according to multiple reports here, this is per Ari, he says a report came out this morning that Patriots wide receiver Stefon Diggs is facing strangulation and assault charges stemming from a December 2nd incident. The team just put out a statement saying the New England Patriots are aware of the accusations that have been made regarding Stefon Diggs. Stefon has informed the organization that he categorically denies the allegations. We support Stefon. We will continue to gather information and will cooperate fully with the appropriate authorities and the NFL as necessary. Out of respect for all parties involved, and given that this is an ongoing legal matter, we will no further comment at this time. Look, it's no good when your organization has to come out and make a statement. And I think as Patriots fans, we're probably a little bit upset about the situation, for several different reasons, but one of those being is that when you sign Stefon Diggs, everybody said, you better know what's going to come with Diggs. And we understood that he's a big personality. He loves Fashion Week. He's dating Cardi B. Like, he is a personality off the field just as much as he is on the field. And we said we can't allow that to be a distraction to this New England Patriots organization under Mike Vrabel, because what Mike Vrabel believes in is that he believes in a culture. And if you have a guy who comes in and he's taking the attention away because of inappropriate things he's doing off the field, well, that doesn't exactly fit the culture. That doesn't fit what Vrabel is trying to do. And we already had an incident with Stefon Diggs dating back, to around that training camp, mini camp, OTA time, where the guys had about a few days off there for the 4th of July, and Stefon Diggs is on a boat with a pink substance with girls all over him. Cardi B was there also, and the Patriots also at that time had to release a statement about the situation. Now, ultimately, nothing came of it, and it was just a situation where, it sounded like Mike Vrabel had to pull Stefon Diggs aside and say, hey, you need to calm down. Don't do those things or you're going to be out of here. And really, outside of that situation, we haven't really heard of Stefon Diggs having any issues. And in fact, here in New England, Stefon Diggs has been a model character. The amount of people that have credited Stefon Diggs for being a great guy on the field, off the field, for him being a leader, the praise that Mike Vrabel has given him, the way that he has stepped up as a leader and as a player, both on the field and off the field. Like, he's not here crying about catches and crying about yards and trying to hit his own, personal vendettas here. He's out here helping the young guys, and he's really been selfless since getting here to New England and really helping this organization turn things around and even help Drake Maye. And so just to hear that Stefon Diggs is being accused of something like this, I can't speak for all Patriots fans, but for me personally, it completely took me left wing, because the guy that we've heard about here in New England and what we've seen from the guy here in New England does not fit the report that is ultimately coming out here. But let's go ahead and let's look at some of the other stuff that we do know about this situation, because there are reported text messages that this person gave the police. So for those who don't know who this woman is basically a chef for Stefon Diggs, and she essentially was not happy because she's not getting the money that she was owed by Stefon Diggs. Originally, Diggs was supposed to, at least from what she is saying, pay her weekly. Then that changed to monthly, but then she just wasn't getting paid at all. And when she ultimately approached Stefon Diggs about the payment, about not getting the money, it started to get physical. Here's a little bit more that we know about the situation. It says, Stefon Diggs, former personal chef, alleges that he slapped her and attempted to choke her during a salary dispute. The accuser alleges that on December 2nd, so this was after the Patriots win prime time against the New York Giants, Diggs entered her unlocked room. During a discussion about money owed, she claimed Diggs slapped her across the face. She then attempted to push him away. According to the court documents, Diggs alleged tried to choke her by placing his elbow around her neck. The report states that the victim described experiencing the effect of strangulation and fears she could, and I quote, black out. She also said that she was afraid for her safety. The woman also claims that Diggs demanded she sign an NDA signed an NDA after the alleged assault as a condition for receiving further payment. The complaint notes that she later received a phone call from Stefon Diggs' girlfriend. And that's a really interesting part about this storyline is, what's Cardi going to do? Cardi and Stefon Diggs just had a kid. They're obviously very, very in love. They're always together. They're always posting about each other. And again, they literally just had a kid together. She apparently knows about the situation because she apparently contacted the supposed victim in this instance about what happened. And what does she say? Ultimately, we don't know, but this person is saying that it wasn't only Stefon Diggs contacting this girl about what happened, but it was also Cardi B. Now, Cardi B didn't hit her, so Cardi B's not going to, or shouldn't deal with any legal actions. I'm not going to act like I'm a lawyer here, but it just adds another layer on top of things that Cardi did know. Now, the interesting part that I got from this circumstance is that supposedly she signed an NDA. So if she did in fact sign this NDA, and now less than a month later, she's coming out and she's talking about it, well, now that's a breach of contract. And so again, we don't know, was an NDA actually signed, or did Stefon Diggs just approach her and say, you need to sign this NDA? And she said no. But that's going to make things a lot more difficult for repercussions for Stefon Diggs and her getting her justice if she did sign an NDA. Now, a couple weeks later, she's coming back on it, because I can promise you that NDA did not say, hey, for the next couple of weeks, don't talk about this situation. But, after 3 weeks, it's totally good. Go do what you got to do. I completely understand. I promise you that didn't happen. But like I said, there were also text messages that supposedly did drop. So we're going to try to read these as much as possible. The ink is a little bit faded on this paper that they showed, but it says, so it looks like Stefon Diggs is the one on the left side. It says, down having a texting match, you got it cool. I think what he meant to say was done having a texting match, you got it cool. She said, you will pay me out for the season and the money you said you would give me for my business. Wasted my effing time being here because you got a effing circus going on. I'm out of your life. Diggs supposedly comes back and says, I won't be paying you anything. If I look like paying you and paying another chef. Is you high? Who the F gives you money for your business? I don't got to do an effing thing. I'm really trying not to curse. I'm trying to keep this family friendly as much as possible, but every single word here seems to be a curse. Diggs comes back and says, and you can get whoever you want. You got my address. Tell them come and take my money. Then F you talking about, show me I'm blah, 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 blah. You can clearly see and read that for yourself. We're not trying to get demonetized here. Okay, guys? And now this was another interesting part, because this is the official police document that kind of breaks down what happened here from the police officer's standpoint, right? And so from the moment she walked in to what was said, this is the entire situation. And so they say that on December 16th of 2025, while assigned to the front desk, this person reportedly comes on in and they checked the scheduling sheets and saw that they didn't have a female officer until later at 4 p.m. So it sounds like this girl wanted to talk to a woman, and maybe not necessarily a man. Maybe the woman, the alleged victim in this instance, just kind of wanted to talk to somebody who would understand from her perspective about the situation and not a man. It says, I let Adams know this, and I told her that I'd give her a few minutes to think about things and that I understood she was uncomfortable speaking to me. After a few minutes, she said that she would give the report to me. I brought her into the interview room off of the lobby and began to speak. After taking down her information, I asked her to tell me in her own words what happened. She was hesitant to reveal the suspect initially, but I told her that I could take a statement and we could talk about that later. She went on to say that on December 2nd of 2025, she was working as a private chef. And it says where she was working. She said that on this date, the male that she had worked for entered her unlocked room. They had began having an ongoing text exchange over money owed to her. She said that they began to discuss this, which apparently angered the male, in this case, Stefon Diggs. She alleges that this male smacked her across the face. She said that she tried to push him away. The male tried to choke her using the crook of his elbow around her neck. She said that he was behind him with his arm wrapped around her. She said that she felt like she had trouble breathing and that he tightened his grip. At this point, the male threw her into his bed. He said something to the effect of, thought so. And then she told him that she had not been paid. At this point, the male said lies and walked out of the room. She explained to me that he needs to sign off on payments in order for her to get paid, which is why she confronted him directly. I asked her if she had any documentation of injuries when this occurred. She said that she had some redness on her upper chest, but did not take any photos. So right now, from what this sounds like, there's no real evidence. There's these text messages between the two, but we looked at the text messages. There's nothing incriminating there. It's an argument supposedly between Stefon Diggs and this woman, but there's nothing that talks about the situation. There's nothing where it's like, why did you hit me? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? And he acknowledges the fact that he did so. And I think the biggest questions that's going to come up for this woman, whether this happened or not, just looking from a law perspective, is going to be, well, okay, why didn't you talk about this sooner? Why is there no photos that you took? Why didn't you go to the doctor? Why didn't you go to the hospital? If there is zero type of documentation, there's zero type of evidence, and she took weeks to come out, they're going to look at that and they're going to wonder, right? Because if the league is going to do anything, and they are going to suspend Stefon Diggs, they're going to fine Stefon Diggs. Diggs is going to have jail time. Diggs is going to be fined by the law. Any of these things, there's going to need to be evidence, because your word and your word alone isn't going to be good enough for any repercussions to happen. It also goes on to say that at this point of the conversations, the victim revealed that the male's name was Diggs, Stefon Diggs, who currently plays for the New England Patriots of the NFL. Why it was typed like that, I don't know. This is a police report, not a James Bond script. She looked at me and said it was Diggs, Stefon Diggs. I doubt she said it like that, but, to each their own. Due to his fame, she was very hesitant to come forward with this. I inquired about the details of her employment so I could understand the relationship. She said that she began to be a private chef on September 20th, or that wouldn't be September, that would be July 20th of 2025. So this was around the time that Stefon Diggs originally was signed to the New England Patriots. It also said that that was after the employment was supposed to go through the end of the NFL football season. So it sounded like since Stefon Diggs got here to New England, he started his rehab process. That's when he hired the chef to help him with what he was eating, prepare his meals, diet him, all that good stuff. And it was going to end when ultimately he was done playing football for this season. And so right now, this is just about all we know about this. Like I said, there is so much more that we don't currently know. But that there's the big question, right? The big question being Stefon Diggs, will he be suspended? And I see you guys asking me already, right? And me personally, guys, when there's a traumatic event that goes on, I try to make life of it, right? Like I bring comedy into horrific parts of life. It's just what I do. It's how I cope with things. Do I think that he did it? I don't know. That's the thing, right? I'm not Stefon Diggs. I am not this woman. I believe that victims should always come forward, but there has to be something substantial there, right? Like we can't live in a society where someone says something happened and we just roll with it, right? You have to be able to prove something happened. You have to have documentation for these exact reasons. And like we alluded to just a couple of minutes ago, at this time, there is no evidence. It's fresh. Maybe things will come out. Maybe it'll come out that she did go see a doctor. She did go to the hospital, and that they can confirm that there were these spots and that there were these bruises on her. But if she waited weeks to come and the police officer examines her and he doesn't see any spots on her, any bruises on her, and she didn't have this documented with video, audio, pictures, she didn't get herself checked out, they're going to look at this and say, there's quite literally nothing we can do here. The other part to this too is that the NFL would do its independent investigation. And again, all we can go off of is what we know right now. If more comes out tomorrow, we don't know that right now. All we can go off of is what we do know. The truth of the matter, and I'm not saying that this is a good thing because I don't agree with it, but so many NFL players get caught for assault. Random people, wives, children. How many times? I mean, think about it. We heard a few years ago that Tyreek Hill had supposedly hit his kid, right? Allegedly hit his kid. What happened to that? Nothing. He wasn't arrested. He didn't get suspended. In fact, we heard about him supposedly assaulting women several different occasions since he was with the Miami Dolphins. What happened in that case? Again, he wasn't fined. He wasn't suspended. And so when it all comes down to it, I think that on social media, people are going to make this such a big storyline. You're going to have everybody posting about it because the Patriots are a very hot topic in the NFL right now. They are a hot commodity. Everybody's also trying to discredit all the success that the Patriots have had. And so they're going to go out there and they're going to say 100% Diggs did it. They're going to talk about him being suspended because, again, they know how important Diggs is to this Patriots offense. And so, again, a lot of time for things to still happen. This is way too fresh. But if you ask me right now, I just don't think that there's enough to go off of for Stefon Diggs to ultimately be suspended. And even if he is, I think we're probably at that point, because this investigation might take a while. I think we're talking, even if they do find something substantial, that's a suspension that's probably going to loom more into 2026. But like I said, these types of things happen all the time in the NFL. It's not okay. It's not cool, but it's just the facts of life. These things in the NFL happen all the time. And it's extremely rare that, I'm trying to use my words carefully here, but it's very rare that those guys do ultimately end up facing jail time or end up being suspended by the NFL. Usually for the NFL to suspend a player with these allegations, it really depends on the track record for the player, right? So is this something that Stefon Diggs has dealt with in the past? Has he had these types of allegations before, which I don't believe Stefon Diggs has? He's had character concerns. He's had the alleged boat incident. But outside of that, I don't really think there's been an incident where Stefon Diggs was allegedly assaulting women. And so I think that's one thing that'll also vote positive for him in the NFL's investigation in not being suspended, is that he doesn't really have a track record of dealing with this thing. And then they're also going to look at, they're going to look at other things. They're going to look at the evidence with the case, which right now there's not a whole lot of that either. So again, right now, if you had to ask me and I had to tell you what I think would happen, I don't think that Stefon Diggs is ultimately going to be suspended when it's all said and done. And so you guys are saying he has. So maybe there's something I'm missing. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to act like I'm the ultimate Stefon Diggs knower of his entire life. Maybe he had issues with a past person in the past. Maybe he hasn't. But at least from my knowledge, it hasn't. I'm going to be honest with you guys. My bigger question does not come down to, do I think that Stefon Diggs is going to have issues with the league or the law? Honestly, my biggest question with Stefon Diggs is, what's he going to deal with the Patriots? Because that's what people forget. Stefon Diggs can deal with repercussions in New England independently. Robert Kraft, Mike Vrabel, they can suspend him. They can bench him. They can release him. They can do any of those things, even if the NFL says there's nothing here, we're closing this case. Even if, from a legal perspective, they say there's nothing we can do here, we're closing the case. And if there's one thing we know about Robert Kraft, he does not put up for stuff like this. And so if the evidence does come back positive and there is a way to prove that this did happen, now we start talking about a different conversation. How long is Stefon Diggs going to be here in New England? Because Robert Kraft does not like to be associated with this kind of stuff. I know it's not considered domestic violence, but it's still Stefon Diggs hitting a woman technically in the workplace. Robert Kraft is not going to be okay with this kind of stuff. And you better believe that Mike Vrabel also isn't. And there was potential talk about Mike Vrabel maybe benching Stefon Diggs in the preseason and joint practice and training camp, and maybe there being some discipline actions there. I'll be interested to see what ultimately happens with Mike Vrabel in this one. But you also can't bench the guy. You can't cut the guy without knowing if he really did something wrong. Like the boat incident, there was video. We knew that Stefon Diggs did what he was accused of on that boat. But in this instance, we don't know anything. And again, we can't react to an accusation. We have to react to the facts and what we actually know. And right now, it is just accusations. Right now, it isn't any legitimate proof at the time of making this video. So, but let's go ahead and let's get on into the next little bit of information, because there's been a lot of injury news surrounding the New England Patriots this offseason, especially as of late. We've talked about it. It's that damn Patriots media that had to say, well, Mike Vrabel, at least you're not dealing with any injuries. You've had good injury luck this year. And then what happens after that? The Patriots get nothing but injury problem after injury problem after injury problem. But pull this up here for you guys real quick. There we go. We lost it. So according to Mike Vrabel himself, he said this just the other day. He said that rookie left tackle Will Campbell will practice this week, which will trigger his 21-day practice window. Vrabel also adds that he is unsure if wide receiver Matt Collins will be able to return this season, and adds that they'll know more in a few weeks, which kind of touch upon the Matt Collins situation that we've already talked about here on this channel. But as for Will Campbell, this is huge for the Patriots. And my initial reaction to this is going to be, okay, well, is he actually going to play against the Miami Dolphins this upcoming week in week 18? I'd be a little bit surprised. And obviously it just depends on how ready they feel that Will Campbell is. But I could see them doing a very similar thing like they did with Milton Williams. Milton Williams returned to practice last week, but we didn't see him activated against the Jets. Why? Because he hasn't played football in so long that they wanted to give him about a week or two of actual practice to ramp his body back up to get into football shape before they throw him just straight up out there on the field. And I could see them doing the same thing with Will Campbell, especially when this game it has some implications, the Patriots Week 18 matchup against the Dolphins, but it's not a game you have to win. It's a game that you have to win if you want a chance at the number one seed in the AFC. But even if you win that game against the Dolphins, if the Broncos beat the backups for the Chargers, then it doesn't matter anyway. And so will the Patriots be in a situation where they kind of use week 18 as a little bit of a bye week to rest some of their guys themselves? They very well could. Now, if I'm Mike Vrabel, what I'm doing with Will Campbell and what I'm doing with Milton Williams is I'm treating this game as a ramp-up period. Having them back at practice is great, even if it's for a week or two, but nothing's like a real game day action going up against a team that is not your own at full speed in a true NFL game. So if I'm Mike Vrabel, I'm throwing out Milton Williams. I'm throwing out Will Campbell in this upcoming game for a couple drives, even upwards to an entire quarter. I don't think he needs to play them the entire time. I think it might honestly be a mistake to play both of those guys the entire time as you're just getting them back from injury. Last thing you want to do is push them too hard in the final week of the season right before the postseason or tire them out. But what you also don't want to do is you don't want to not have those guys play at all in a regular season game or just an NFL game, and then you throw them out there for the first time since they were injured in a postseason game, in an NFL playoff game, but now they're a little bit rusty and now they're a little bit slow, because starting off slow can be the world of difference in an NFL playoff game. And so having those guys at their best is going to be very, very pivotal. Big shout out to Vidarian Lowe, who was holding down that left tackle spot for the Patriots in absence of Will Campbell. I think that Vidarian Lowe gets a lot of hate. He's gotten a lot of hate this season. In my opinion, it comes because people are still more hell-bent on what he did last year in 2024 in a very different system. If you look at the numbers, he actually didn't do all that bad. And we can actually pull them up here real quick. Share my screen here with you guys. Just obviously, this is in limited sample size for Vidarian Lowe. Keep that in mind. But if you go ahead and you look at his numbers, he hasn't been bad this season. He's been serviceable. I mean, this is better than some starters in the NFL. And so you look at him, he has an overall PFF grade of 63, a pass blocking grade of 66.8, and a run blocking grade of 60.1, which is well below average. So he's giving you just slightly below average play from a pass blocking standpoint. He's giving you average to slightly above average play. From a run blocking perspective, that's where it's really been a drop off from Will Campbell. And I think that's probably the biggest fall off we've seen with Will Campbell being out, is that the Patriots loved to run the ball to the left side when they had Will Campbell and Jared Wilson healthy. But as soon as those guys went down, it was running the football up the middle and running the football to the right side behind Morgan Moses and Michael Onwenu, because they just didn't trust the run blocking of Vidarian Lowe and Ben Brown, which is understandable. Overall on the season, Vidarian Lowe has played 303 total snaps. He's had 2 penalties and 1 total sack allowed. He's also allowed 15 total pressures and 2 quarterback hits to go along with that. Now, if we do go ahead real quick and we look at Will Campbell's numbers before getting injured, and obviously Will Campbell did play up against much better competition than Vidarian Lowe did, his numbers are a lot better, right? I mean, Will Campbell in every single phase is a better tackle than Vidarian Lowe. We know this. I just don't think the drop-off is maybe as big as some people thought. He has an overall grade of 71.3 this season, an above-average pass blocking grade of 76.1, so a big boost there to Drake May's blind side, but you're also getting a big boost in terms of run blocking. Also, Will Campbell, I'm not going to tell you is elite as a run blocker, but I would say he's about average, maybe even slightly above average. But he's better than Vidarian Lowe. And he has an overall grade this season of 65.7. I think what this will do is it's going to allow the Patriots to kind of open back up their run game a little bit more and be a little bit less predictable. And I'm not telling you the Patriots never ran the ball to the left side while Will Campbell was out, but I think you feel more confident about their ability to run now to the left side, because Will Campbell, really, really athletic, really agile for a tackle. He's able to get downfield a lot quicker. Like, that's the best part to his game, in my opinion, is how athletic he is. Now he can move downfield so quick. He can keep up with Ramondre Stevenson. He can keep up with Travion Henderson in the run game when those guys are getting tosses outside or they're running outside zone and they need their blockers to get downfield. Something that they just didn't really have for Vidarian Lowe. And now that the running backs have kind of come to life a little bit, the running game as a unit is starting to come to life a little bit. What happens when you get a little bit more of a boost in your run blocking department? Overall this season, though, before getting injured, Will Campbell put up 737 offensive snaps, 7 total penalties, 5 sacks allowed to go along with 25 total pressures and 4 quarterback hits. So again, for me, I think a lot of people look at the offensive line and they say it's all about talent. It's all about having the 5 most talented guys on your line. And yes, you need talent to play any position in football. But what the O-line is more so about is it's about chemistry. It's about continuity. Look back at 2021. Michael Onwenu is a significantly more talented player than Ted Karras. But the Patriots took out Michael Onwenu during 2021 to put in Ted Karras, and the Patriots' offensive line got significantly better. Why? Because the chemistry was better with Ted Karras in than it was with Michael Onwenu. The continuity got better. Knowing when to pass off blocks, knowing what your guy to your left and what your guy to your right is going to do without actually having to speak to them speaks volumes. And I think that's a big part that you're getting to Will Campbell's game too, because you didn't really have Adarian Lowe working with Drake Maye in the first team offense in this brand new regime. You didn't really see it this offseason. You also didn't really have Vidarian Lowe working much with Jared Wilson. And then for Vidarian Lowe and then Ben Brown to come in together as, well, those guys also didn't really work together a whole lot on top of working with Drake Maye. Drake Maye is best friends with Will Campbell. In fact, if you look at Drake Maye's wife's TikTok account for her bake miss, on that final day, on Christmas Day, she made like cinnamon rolls, and you had Will Campbell testing them out, and you got Drake Maye recording the video. Clear sign that those guys were together on Christmas Day. And you just see the brotherhood between Drake Maye and Will Campbell and just the chemistry that those guys are going to be on. And I think that'll also be big for this Patriots offensive line and especially their blocking as the postseason comes along. So definitely big ups to the Patriots for getting Will Campbell back. But we do have one more storyline that I do want to get in here with you guys. And that is, of course, Drake Maye. Is Drake Maye now leading the MVP conversation after the stinker that Matthew Stafford just put up? Of course, though, guys, do your boy a big favor and hit that like button if you haven't already. If you're not going to do it for your favorite baker here on Bakemas, make sure that you guys do it for the queen of the channel, Brooke. It goes such a long way when you guys donate to the channel. Hit the like button, watch the videos, share, or use the YouTube hype feature. This essentially tells YouTube, wow, people are interacting with the video. People really like it. We should put it out there into the YouTube algorithm. So if you guys like what you're seeing, do your boy a favor and hit that like button. Takes less than a second. And of course, it is completely free. Also, real quick, do want to give a big shout out to our sponsor of today's video and our good friends over at Kalshi. We've been looking at the MVP odds, and we're going to continue to do so as we talk about the MVP odds here. So if you look at it right now, Drake Maye, about 74% of people are taking him to win NFL MVP, while 25% of people are taking Matthew Stafford. That is a massive drop-off when Stafford, before last night's game against the Falcons, about 80-90% of people were taking him to win MVP. And what I love about Kalshi is that you can see how over time the trends change. And after last night's game and after Drake Maye's performance against the Jets, he has shot right back up while Matthew Stafford has shot right down. In fact, if you believe Matthew Stafford will not win NFL MVP, you can turn $100 into $130. Interesting little detail there. Of course, not just NFL MVP, but you can get in on so much more with Kalshi, like who's going to be the coach of the year. You can get in on weekly games as we enter the postseason. You can get in on it even this week, Patriots versus Dolphins there at Gillette Stadium to wrap up the 2025 NFL season. Great part about Kalshi is that you're not playing up against Kalshi. You're playing up against real people with their own real thoughts and opinions on the same lines. Of course, though, they're available in every single state, but play responsibly. We'll pin that into the live chat below. But all right, let's go ahead and let's get back here to our final discussion. Of course, we're talking about Drake Maye. Does he deserve to be the NFL MVP? And do I think that Drake Maye is going to be the NFL MVP? This is a discussion that we've been having a whole lot here on this channel, but I also think it's rightfully so why we're having some of the discussions that we are. If you asked me midway through the season, who do I think was going to win NFL MVP? I would have told you it was Drake Maye. And I would have stood my ground on him. Man, I was getting into fights with Bills fans. I was getting into fights with Rams fans on Twitter. Like, what you mean? You don't think he's going to win NFL MVP? I put my money that he is going to win NFL MVP. But then they came out of that bye week in a very, very close race there between Drake Maye and Matthew Stafford. And Drake Maye put up a stinker. The Patriots blew a 21-point lead, and Stafford threw for over 300 yards that week. And I said, this might be wrapped up, and Stafford might have won it. But then Drake Maye balls out over 400 total yards of offense against the Ravens, has a game-winning drive. And then, of course, this past week, a stellar performance, 5 passing touchdowns against the New York Jets, and Stafford passes for under 300 yards against the Falcons. They lose that game. Stafford throws 3 interceptions, one of which was a pick 6. I do find it a little bit funny that when Drake Maye threw that pick 6 against the Bengals a few weeks ago, there were Rams fans everywhere saying, oh yeah, after that pick 6, Drake Maye's definitely not winning NFL MVP. Did you just see that pick he threw? That's not what MVPs do. A week later, Stafford throws a pick 6 against the Panthers. Then he throws another pick 6 this past week against the Falcons. He has more pick 6s now just on this season alone than Drake Maye does. So Rams fans, keep up that energy. Come for me. I don't care. I'll just cook you. I'll just flag on the play. I'll just cook you. Because keep that same energy. When it was Drake Maye throwing the pick 6 and he had more than Stafford on the season, you held it against him. Now Stafford has more, so with your logic, we should continue to use that against him. Also, with that pick 6 last night, Stafford is now tied for the most pick 6s all time. Interesting fact about that one. Now, I do want to share this here with you guys. I want to share these stats here with you real quick. Let me share this with you guys, because these are the updated stats, a comparison by comparison stat through now 17 weeks of the NFL season. Make sure you guys can see this real quick. All right, perfect. So as you can see, both quarterbacks have played the same amount of games. They've both had their bye weeks. They both played 16 total games. Drake Maye has a better record. Drake Maye has a better completion percentage at 71.7. Stafford does have more passing yards at 4,448, but Drake Maye is not far behind at 4,203. Drake Maye is also averaging more yards per attempt at 8.9 than Stafford's 8. Now, Stafford is averaging more yards per game at 278 than Drake Maye's 262. Stafford also does have more passing touchdowns at 42 than Drake Maye's 30. They are tied for interceptions. That was also a big thing that Rams fans were saying was, okay, well, Stafford has more touchdowns and less interceptions. Well, okay, now he does have more passing touchdowns, but now they have the same amount of interceptions. And again, Stafford has thrown more pick 6s. But Drake Maye has a better rating. He has a better QBR. He has more rush attempts. He has more rushing yards. He has more rush yards per attempt. He has more rushing touchdowns. And for whatever it's worth, he also has more fantasy points on the year. I've heard a lot of people say that when talking about the MVP award, you cannot put Drake Maye's rushing statistics into his game. Since when was the MVP conversation? Since when was the battle amongst quarterbacks simply about their passing stats? I mean, we are trying to fit storylines into our own specific categories to make your logic make more sense. And it's just not. It's just making you look dumb. I mean, with that same logic, I guess we should take away Lamar Jackson's MVP awards, right? I mean, his game is all mobility. Take that away, and he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Josh Allen wins it last year, large part because of his mobility. I guess we should take that away too. This is a large part of Drake Maye's game, is that mobility. And again, he's put up over 400 yards on the ground, while Stafford has done nothing. In fact, I think that's more impressive by Drake Maye. The fact that he's only a couple hundred yards there behind Matthew Stafford in total passing yards. But if you look at it, Stafford is in negative rushing yards, while Drake Maye has almost half of 1,000 rushing yards. That's more impressive to me, that a quarterback has that ability and that talent level to not just pass the ball, but he's also running the football effectively and efficiently. I think there's also other numbers that you have to look at, and where does Drake Maye rank? Overall, Drake Maye has an overall grade of 112.9. That's first. On deep throws, which is 20-plus air yards or more, he has an overall grade of 129.2. That ranks first. Under pressure, he has an overall grade or an overall rating, not grade, but an overall rating of 102.6. That ranks first. On the road, he has a rating of 120.2. That is first. When trailing, he has a passer rating of 110.4. That is first. Inside the pocket, a PR of 114.9. That is first. Outside of the numbers, 123 rating. That is second. Past the sticks, 126 rating. That is first. Versus zone coverage, 110.2. That is first. Versus blitz, 129.3. That is first. Versus sub packages, 110.6. That is first. On straight dropbacks, 109.5. That is first. In tight windows, 75.1. That is second. On first downs, 134.4. That is first. When he's outdoors playing, he has an overall rating of 111.3. That is first. Versus two high safeties, he has a rating of 102.5. That is fourth. And on third and fourth down, he has a rating of 103.1. That is also fourth. So let's not just look at the stats, which the stats alone for Drake Maye are very impressive. And Drake Maye has more overall all-purpose yards than Stafford does. But let's also look more in depth at what Drake Maye is doing. And it is still more impressive than Matthew Stafford. Let's also look at context, because I think a lot of people look at the MVP award and they're like, all right, let's look at the stats. What guy has the better stats? It's like, that's not what this is. In fact, if you want to go back and you want to look at last year's MVP, Lamar Jackson clears Josh Allen in pretty much every single category. So why didn't Lamar Jackson win over Josh Allen last year? Because context is a huge part to the award. Think about it. This is MVP. This is most valuable player. We're not here talking about who is the offensive player of the year. I think stats are more offensive player of the year. But when we're talking about who's more valuable to their team, you got to think about it like this. If you take this player away from their team, does that team still have that same success with a different player? If you put, let's say, Jimmy Garoppolo on the not the San Francisco 49ers, but the Rams, what's their record? If you put Jimmy Garoppolo on the New England Patriots offensive roster, what's the Patriots record? I promise you, the Rams, who have a better offensive line than the Patriots, the Rams who have the number one ranked running game in the NFL, the Rams who have two wide receiver ones, one of which, Puka Nacua, who was an MVP candidate early on in the season before getting injured, I promise you that team is going to be better. So the fact that Drake Maye took the Patriots from a 4-win team to year one in a brand new system with over 50% of its roster turned this offseason, a brand new head coach, a brand new offensive coordinator, a brand new quarterbacks coach, wide receivers coach, offensive line coach, tight end coach to come in here, win the division, competing for the number one seed in the AFC. The Patriots are making the playoffs, and he's in the MVP conversation at only 23 years old. He has been breaking records all year long, joining the likes of some of the best quarterbacks to ever do so. I mean, we're talking about Dan Marino. We're talking about Patrick Mahomes. We're talking about Tom Brady. I mean, the amount of games that Drake Maye had with over 100+ passer rating and 200+ passing yards, it's like an NFL record. I mean, the amount of games he's had with a 90% completion percentage this year, but, oh yeah, I forgot. Nobody wants to talk about that. How about Drake Maye being the first player with 5+ passing touchdowns and a 90 or better completion percentage since December 13th of 1981? Drake Maye is also the third Patriots quarterback, again at only 23 years old, in New England Patriots franchise history to pass for 4,000 or more yards. Joins the likes of Tom Brady and Drew Bledsoe. Drake has not even played 2 seasons worth of football games yet in the NFL. And he's doing these things. How many quarterbacks were in the MVP conversation and turning their organizations around as soon as Drake Maye has in their young NFL career? Like Patrick Mahomes is one of them. How many more can you really say? So, in my own opinion, I believe that Drake Maye does deserve it. And there's going to be a lot of people that say, oh, but Drake Maye's schedule. It was so easy. And it's like, okay, well, we're talking about Drake Maye versus opposing defenses. We're not talking about Drake Maye versus a team's record, because what Drake Maye does against an opposing team's offense doesn't matter. Drake Maye's not playing defense. We're talking about MVP. We're talking about Drake Maye versus opposing team's defense. And guess what? Drake Maye has played some of the best defenses in the NFL. He's gone up against several top 10 secondaries in the NFL and put up 30+ points. There's only been a couple times this season where the Patriots haven't put up 20-plus points. They've played some of the best pass rush units in the NFL. And even when dealing with injuries, Drake Maye still out there balling. I understand the argument of the Patriots schedule, but it's a weak one. And who was it that just came out? There was a all-time great who just came out. Was it Brett Favre who came out? I got to get this right for you guys. It was Kurt Warner who came out and basically said everybody that's downgrading the Patriots and Drake Maye for their schedule, it's essentially one of the stupidest things you could possibly say. He said, and I quote, "People who are using any NFL schedule as a means of discrediting a phenomenal season and an MVP case is ridiculous to me. They are all NFL players. You play teams on your schedule when and where they tell you. Each game is its own story, and the player who's had the best season should win MVP, period." And if you are going to say that Drake Maye's success should be taken away because of his schedule, then you should also be saying that Matthew Stafford's success should be taken away because of the supporting cast that he has. The run game and 2 wide receiver ones, one of which is an MVP caliber receiver. Now, I say all that not to tell you that Drake Maye is going to win MVP. But I tell you all of that to tell you that he should win MVP. If the league is not rigged, if the voting is not rigged and the NFL and the voters know what they're doing, they will give it to Drake Maye. And all I've heard is, well, Stafford's going to get it because it's good for the storylines. You know what's also good for the NFL? Giving an MVP award to a 23-year-old quarterback. For the Patriots to be back as a narrative. Patrick Mahomes, Drake Maye, like Josh Allen in that mix too. That's what's good for the NFL over the next 10 plus years. To give it to Matthew Stafford, who is at the back end of his career, this could be his last year. Like, that's good for Matthew Stafford as an individual. That's good for his Hall of Fame case. But that doesn't help the NFL for the next 10 plus years. You know, Stafford's never gotten an MVP award. So I think if they give MVP to Stafford, they're kind of giving it to him as fan service. They're saying, all right, well, you've never won one. You've been to the Super Bowl before. You had a good season. We're going to give you one because Drake Maye, he's only 23. He'll have several opportunities to still get it. We'll make up for that in the future. We're going to give you this because this is your last chance. If Stafford gets the MVP award, that is quite literally the only reason. But again, if the league wants to do what is right and the league wants to do what's good for the league in and of itself, then giving the MVP to Drake Maye is what makes the most sense. And I know that everybody's gonna say, oh, well, of course, it's a Patriots fan saying he deserves it. This is unbiasedly speaking. Again, MVP, most valuable player. What's more impressive? What Stafford's doing or what Drake Maye is doing? We laid out all the facts. We laid out all of the stats, some of which are very in-depth that you probably didn't even know. In majority of categories, Drake Maye is playing better than Matthew Stafford, and that's just a fact. But guys, look, that is going to wrap it up for today's episode. This is where I kick it off to you guys. What are your thoughts on all the storylines that we hit upon here today? Of course, just wrapping it up, we talked about the whole Drake Maye MVP, locked that up against Stafford. Let us know your thoughts about that in the comment section below. Will Campbell officially returning to the New England Patriots, what this means for them moving forward. And then, of course, Stefon Diggs with the allegations coming out about him. What do you guys think about this one? Do you think he gets suspended? We will have you guys covered for all news that continues to come out about this team. As always, on your way out, make sure you guys slam that like button and subscribe here to Patriots Global for all your New England Patriots news, thoughts, reactions, breakdowns, and everything in between. And follow us on our other social medias too. TikTok at Patriots Global, posting a lot of Patriots and NFL related content over there. Check us out on Instagram and Twitter and even Facebook also at Patriots Global. But until later on this week, to talk more about Patriots news, I appreciate you guys for clicking on today's video to hear me talk about some of the latest Patriots news. Go Pats.